Hello and welcome to episode 115 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. As always, I am joined by Evan Silva. Thank you all for being subscribers. Today, we will be going team by team through the NFC to talk week 3 fallout. Evan, what's going on?
What's going on, man? Ready to jump into it.
All right. Arizona Cardinals we are going to start off with, and I thought that the free Isabella movement was happening, and if you just looked at the box score, you would have thought that he did, as Andy Isabella, of course, had a good game. However, Andy Isabella only played 26 snaps. I mean, it's just criminal. They played Keyshawn Johnson 44, they played the corpse of Larry Fitzgerald 54, and now Christian Kirk could be back in week 4. I mean, Andy Isabella's been targeted 20 times in his career. He's turned that into 15 catches, 303 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So, frustrating on Andy Isabella. I still think he's a hold. He's just been so productive. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was Kenyon Drake's pass game usage, because it's infuriating. 3 games in, only 1.7 targets per game. I mean, he's going full big dog on us. Last year, 4.4 targets per game for Kenyon Drake. Do you have any idea what's going on with Kenyon Drake's pass game role? And what do you think about Isabella?
Yeah, number one, they are using Chase Edmonds as like a true satellite back, and he is eating into Kenyon Drake's targets, and Kyler Murray is running like a wild man and not checking the ball down to Kenyon Drake. And it's been, frustrating because Kenyon Drake caught 28 passes in 8 games with the Cardinals last season, for like a 56 catch pace. That would have been excellent, but that's not something that, anymore looks like it's likely for Kenyon Drake this year. I still think he's a buy low, though. He's sort of in that Joe Mixon range where he's been frustrating early. His role is very likely secure after they gave him that $8.5 million salary on the transition tag. I don't think that they're going to turn away from him and go to Chase Edmonds. Chase Edmonds should certainly still be rostered everywhere. But Kenyon Drake, I think that his role is secure, and he's going to continue to get 17 to 21 touches per game in an offense that is, at least above average, if not top 12 or top 10. Their passing game so far, though, has not been great. Kyler Murray at 5.7 adjusted yards per pass attempt. That's actually worse than what he had last year. He had 6.6 last year. And their passing game right now is really just made up of a ton of hitch routes to DeAndre Hopkins, who's just catching every single one and leads the NFL in targets and catches. But they're going to need more from their passing game, I think, to be, what they optimally could be. And maybe Christian Kirk will give that to them. Christian Kirk is sort of in that Michael Gallup role, not as good as Michael Gallup and not as good in as good of a passing game as Michael Gallup, but a guy that is going to get between, I think, 5 and 6 targets per game when healthy. And a lot of them are going to be deep downfield.
The way they're using DeAndre Hopkins reminds me a little bit of like Michael Thomas last year. Like, go short, we'll throw it to you. You're going to catch it like 90% of the time, and we'll pick it up as kind of an extension of the run game. And I think that's hurt Kenyon Drake a little bit as well. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins' ADOT is just absolutely pathetic, like near the bottom of the league. So, yeah, DeAndre Hopkins has certainly changed a lot with Arizona's offense. Let's go to Atlanta. Julio didn't play in this game. Russell Gage went out with an injury, so it just turns into Calvin Ridley season. I mean, gosh, Calvin Ridley, you called it before the year, Evan. I didn't think it was possible. Calvin Ridley has gone full nuclear. I mean, his role and usage is absolutely through the roof. We'll see on the status of Julio. We'll see on the status of Russell Gage. But Olamide Zaccheaus was the full-time player with those guys out. What did you see out of Atlanta in yet another collapse as they fell to Big Dick Nick's comeback?
Yeah, I was hoping for more production out of Hayden Hurst. Only 3 targets, did get the goal line touchdown. But his usage has been up and down. He did not take advantage of Julio Jones' absence in this game. I think that this is an opportunity to sell high on Todd Gurley. Brian Hill is just as good of an option in Atlanta's backfield, and it seems like they realize that because they upped Brian Hill's usage this past week and downgraded Ito Smith from the backfield. Brian Hill is a good pickup, I think, if he's on waivers. He's a guy that I think already should have been stashed. So hopefully they can get Julio back, though, and go back to being fielding a prolific passing game, because they've got a lot of good weapons there.
And Brian Hill was a guest last year on the Take Cast, so I can't face picking you. Once you've been a guest on the Take Cast, I can't face picking you up. But yeah, okay. Carolina. We were on Mike Davis, man, and I'm pissed that he kind of got squeezed out of a lot of my lineups. I would have had a lot more of him if Devin Singletary didn't come into play. But, Mike Davis in the pure CMC role, 86% of the running back carries, 32% target share for Mike Davis. Mike Davis has 17 targets in the last 6 quarters as he's been stubbing for Christian McCaffrey. Like, this is the role that dreams are made of. Mike Davis can play. Mike Davis, I believe he led all running backs this week in tackles broken also. And so, I think Mike Davis can play, man. This role is outrageous. Maybe we should have been even higher on him. And we also got some questions about DJ Moore. A bunch of people are asking what's wrong with DJ Moore. What's wrong with DJ Moore? They want to know what to do. I actually think DJ Moore has been fine. Tough matchup this past week for him. But what do you think about what's going on with Carolina?
Yeah, that was a tough matchup for DJ Moore. DJ Moore still has one of the highest air yard shares in the NFL, like top 5 in the NFL. So I'm not worried about this. This offense has a bunch of really nice matchups coming up. Arizona in week 4, at Atlanta in week 5. In week 6, this will be a good matchup, I think, for Mike Davis in a revenge game against the Bears, who cut him. And the Bears have not been good against the run so far. And then the Saints, who they have not looked strong defensively thus far, and the Falcons again. So, if you could get DJ Moore for cheap, like, go for it. I think he's going to end up being fine. I know that the start has been slow. He did have a big week 2 game, but I think that he is a buy right now.
While we transition to Chicago, we should mention Ian Thomas has just been no man's land. They're not even thinking about throwing to Ian Thomas. And so now we have a chance on waivers, a lot of guys, to pick up Jimmy Graham, who has looked shockingly spry. Would you rather have Jimmy Graham right now than Ian Thomas?
I guess.
I think so too.
This is
Ian
for,
Thomas isn't even involved.
FFPC tight end premium leagues only, I think. Jimmy Graham, I was looking at, he's scored 3 touchdowns so far. None of them have come from further than 3 yards out, and all of them have been with the Bears trailing by at least 10 points. So he's like a comeback goal line option.
Yeah. One thing on the Bears, though, as we move to them, we are removing Tariq Cohen because Tariq Cohen, unfortunately, blew out his ACL. Happy for him that he got paid right before this happens. Happy for the dude. But yeah, Tariq Cohen's out now. How do you think that changes what's going to happen? I know you were tweeting a little bit about David Montgomery this morning. What do you think the fallout is from Tariq Cohen's season-ending injury?
Yeah, well, I think that David Montgomery was one of the biggest fantasy football winners across the league in week 3 because, number one, Tariq Cohen is now out of the picture, and that increases David Montgomery's target upside. And it also gives him a chance to be a true 3-down back, which he has not been so far. He's not even played 60% of the snaps in any of the Bears' first 3 games. He did start with that groin injury, but I think that we're going to end up seeing him in the 75, maybe even 80% range going forward with Cordero Patterson essentially as the Bears' number 2 back. By the way, I think that Cordero Patterson in deeper leagues is a kind of intriguing addition. I don't know if he made it into the waiver wire column, but I would pick him up in deeper bench leagues. But and then also Nick Foles, the insertion of Nick Foles and pulling out Mitchell Trubisky, I think gives the Bears a little bit more stability on offense. Nick Foles has played for John DeFilippo, Bill Lazor, and Matt Nagy before, all guys on the Bears coaching staff at various spots. And he has a deep understanding of what those coaches want and where to go with the football. He targeted Allen Robinson relentlessly. Allen Robinson was very close to having 2 touchdowns in the second half of last week's game. He did come away with 1. But yeah, I like this insertion of Nick Foles for Allen Robinson and also to a lesser extent for David Montgomery.
Oh, yeah. This is setting up so well for Allen Robinson. We talked about it all summer. The best quarterback that Allen Robinson has played with ever, even going back to college, is going to be Nick Foles. We saw him just light up the Falcons as expected, and you move Tariq Cohen, who's going to see, project for a higher target share than David Montgomery would have, and so you start pushing more targets towards Allen Robinson and more quality targets. So yeah, definitely like Allen Robinson a lot. Dallas. Biggest frustration with Dallas was the CeeDee Lamb situation. He only played 49 out of 82 snaps, and they didn't report any injury, but it looked like he got banged up on a punt return. We saw Cedric Wilson come into CeeDee Lamb's spot and just go ham, which was absolutely tilting. Noah Brown got in there as well. So I'm keeping an eye on CeeDee Lamb, and, There's been no reports, which is weird because Dallas is usually very, very on top of releasing information and report. They have like 20 reporters covering their team. So we'll see. But I would at least monitor Cedric Wilson in some deeper leagues in case CD misses time. What do you see out of Dallas's trip up to Seattle?
Yeah, and Michael Gallup got going, which was inevitable. We talked about how that was inevitable, how he was getting, almost as many. He was not getting nearly as many targets as Amari Cooper, but getting almost as many air yards. And he's going to be, I think, probably, somewhat inconsistent in that role. But I think that he's going to be fine and is still a guy that, at worst, every week you start as a wide receiver 3 with legit wide receiver 1 upside because of all those deep targets that he's getting. And he's just like a really good player. Dalton Schultz continues to have a pretty consistent role. Now 16 targets over the past 2 weeks since taking over for Blake Jarwin. And he's a possession tight end, but he's a guy that's useful in FFPC leagues for sure.
Yeah, and we drafted Jarwin on that really good football guys team that we have in FFPC, and we lost Jarwin, and now we're really struggling. But would have been really nice to have him. He was going to have a big year. Detroit Lions. I mean, Adrian Peterson touches the ball 23 times, and I know they won, but like this is exactly why you don't incinerate early picks on running backs. They used the 43rd overall pick on Kerryon in 2018, the 35th overall pick on DeAndre Swift in 2020. You sign Adrian Peterson 5 days before the season starts, and he's your feature back. So I don't think that's going to sustain. They were winning, they were playing well, they rode Adrian Peterson, whatever, that's fine. I mean, if you can, I would still try to hold on to DeAndre Swift. Kenny Golladay was back, and he came in saying that he was not 100%. I didn't get to watch the game. I don't know how he looked, but he did have what looked like a pretty normal role. And with Kenny Golladay back, TJ Hawkinson's role was actually better, which was good to see. Played more, ran more routes. What did you think out of Detroit's kind of surprising win in Arizona?
Yeah, I mean, this was the best game that the Lions offense has played so far, and that's no surprise that it, occurred in a game where Kenny Golladay came back. He's such a difference maker for everything that they do offensively. And again, as we talked about last week, the schedule looks really, really nice for the Lions going forward. They've got the Saints at home next week, and then they've got their bye. But then they've got the Jags and the Falcons, and the Colts are a tough one, but then the Vikings. So I think that the Lions are still in bye mode. With DeAndre Swift, he's just a guy that you put at the end of your bench. And, it's a 3-man backfield right now in an above-average offense, and we cannot invest fantasy starts into situations like that. But at some point, it's likely that it's going to move into more of a 2-man backfield. And in that scenario, we'll be able to use DeAndre Swift as a much more confident flex option.
For sure. And in different game scripts, DeAndre Swift's going to play a ton more also. Green Bay, man, maybe one of the biggest surprises is Green Bay, how much they're throwing. I mean, early downs, they're top 3 in the league. Neutral situation, early downs, they're throwing at a top 3 rate, which we did not expect based on their personnel moves in the offseason. Alan Lazard, my boy, came up big. And I know Alan Lazard, nobody likes Alan Lazard. He's slow, but man, Alan Lazard came up big with Devontae Adams out. And then we should talk about Robert Tonyan, 551 against New Orleans, also scored against Detroit. I mean, at the tight end position, as we say, it seems like we come down to this every year. Anybody even capable of 551 is at least worth mentioning. What do you think about what's going on with Green Bay as they won against New Orleans without Devontae Adams?
Yeah, I try to be real positive about Lazard and Tonyan in my Saints Packers write-up from a showdown standpoint. So hopefully some people benefited from that. We'll see if Devontae Adams is back this week, but it is very, very impressive how strong offensively they remained even without their top pass catcher. Aaron Jones continues to be a stud, just giving the middle finger to touchdown regression. This offense. What do you
think about Tonyan versus Jimmy Graham?
I would go with Tonyan. Put him in your age model. I think it spits out Robert Tonyan. Big Bob, Big Bob Tonyan.
He's actually an athletic dude, man. Like Tanya's no geek off the street.
That's right.
And he beat out Jay Sternberger, who they used a 3rd-round pick on, so they clearly like him. Yeah, I like Tonyan too. Maybe I'll switch that. Right now, I have us bidding a little bit more on Jimmy Graham than Tonyan, but maybe I'll switch that.
Put some decent bids, man. I mean, it's time to get aggressive. We need tight ends.
All right, Rams I mentioned how surprising it is that the Packers have been so throw heavy on early downs. The Rams have been outrageously run heavy on early downs. And given Sean McVay's background and his tendency, that is a surprise. Darrell Henderson, man, you know, I don't know when Cam Akers is going to be back. And Malcolm Brown still played a ton, but the touches went to Darrell Henderson, who looks obviously just anybody looks better than Malcolm Brown, but looks way better than Malcolm Brown. What did you see out of the Rams kind of in that wild game up at Buffalo?
Yeah, Darrell Henderson, when he hits the hole, and he's, we've talked about this a lot over the last 2 years. He's a gap runner. He's not a zone runner. And the Rams, with Gurley, were almost strictly zone. And now they're running gap schemes, and Darrell Henderson is just absolutely hitting the gap with authority. And I mean, he didn't even have a long run in this past game. Yeah, his long run was 14 yards among 20 carries, but he still finished with almost 6 yards a pop, just peeling off, 5, 6, 7 yard gains. He looks tremendous out there and is really giving them a lot more juice on offense. They lead the NFL in rushing attempts through 3 games. And Sean McVay came out yesterday on Monday and said Darrell Henderson is going to be our starter in week 4 against the Giants, and the Rams are like 2 touchdown favorites against the Giants. So that is an excellent spot for any running back. And also Sean McVay was asked about like a number of injured players, and he was like, yeah, he'll be able to go. Yeah, he'll be able to go. And then when he got to Cam Akers, he was like, I don't know. So it sounds like it's going to be Darrell Henderson again as the true feature back, and Malcolm Brown as the sort of the role player. And last week, the touch distribution went 21 in Henderson's favor and 7 for Malcolm Brown, deservedly so.
Only other note I have on the Rams, Tyler Higbee only ran so far this season, he's ran 55 routes on 99 Jared Goff dropbacks. I mean, that is not very much, but the dude is obviously extremely productive. When he gets targets, he's going to have big games because of that. But man, there's going to be some ugly games when he doesn't score touchdowns for Tyler Higbee. So, a lot of the tight ends.
And this past week, he ran 14 routes and Gerald Everett ran 12. So you wonder if, it's starting to even up again and they're going to be like rotational players. They're playing 3 receiver sets. I mean, Cooper Kupp is out there 90%, and then Robert Woods, and then Josh Reynolds took a stranglehold on that 3rd receiver job this past week. Van Jefferson, only 12% of the snaps.
Yep. All right. Speaking of rookies with the last name Jefferson, one of the biggest stories on the waiver wire this week is Justin Jefferson for the Minnesota Vikings. And he played behind BC Johnson for the first 2 weeks. In week 3, they said, enough. Our offense is total dust. We might as well just get Justin Jefferson out there. He runs 29 routes. BC Johnson runs 1, and Justin Jefferson just goes absolutely nuclear on the Titans. How aggressive would you be bidding on Justin Jefferson right now on waiver wires?
I think that there are some reasons for caution. First of all, that Titans secondary is just beat. I mean, he's out here dusting Jonathan Joseph. Jonathan Joseph, like, it's surprising that he's still in the league. I mean, he's like 37 years old at this point. But Justin Jefferson is a baller. I mean, he was extremely productive, just outrageously productive last year at LSU. He's a really, really good prospect. And they were lining him up on the outside. He played in the slot earlier in the season, but they lined him up on the outside, and he was winning. And I also think that is going to come back to help Adam Thielen, who has seen a lot of coverage early in the year. But now that Justin Jefferson put that on tape, I think that teams are not going to be able to roll coverage Adam Thielen's way and hopefully kickstart this passing game going forward.
Yeah, I wish they would use Irv Smith a little bit more too, man. I still think Irv Smith can play, and obviously they find a lot of reliability in Kyle Rudolph, but I'd love to see them give Kyle Rudolph a chance. But it was good to see them get their offense kind of stuck out of the mud a little bit. New Orleans Saints. I mean, New Orleans Saints' entire offense is like checkdowns to Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas. Now they don't have Michael Thomas. It's just check down after check down to Alvin Kamara. I mean, Jared Cook has been a disappointment. Manny Sanders, Traquan Smith. These guys aren't really doing much. What did you see out of New Orleans' loss to Green Bay?
Same thing as you. It's a very, very condensed sort of usage distribution right now, and it's like all Alvin Kamara.
It's crazy.
They did utilize Latavius Murray a little bit more last week. Like, they clearly wanted to run the ball against Green Bay, and Latavius Murray had 12 carries, 13 touches. Jared Cook got hurt in the game, So that'll be a situation to monitor. Manny Sanders got in the box, but still don't really trust him. Saw 5 targets and made Traquan Smith less relevant than he looked against the Raiders. They need Michael Thomas back badly, and it does sound like he is likelier than not to return this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously going to make a big difference for them, just the way they play. Okay, the New York Giants, man, another awful game for Danny Dimes against kind of the B team for San Francisco. I still have hope for some spike weeks for Danny Dimes, but it's waning right now. And we knew the first month was going to be tough, man. But as we said, Rams, Cowboys, Washington, Eagles, still have Bengals. They play Washington and Philly again. You know, like the schedule is good for Danny Dimes. Losing Saquon hurts a ton, but I still think he can overcome it. Am I crazy to still have some optimism in Danny Dimes? You think he's just not the dude?
No, I think it's schedule based. You know, I definitely think it's schedule based, and we saw this coming. And now it's going to open up a little bit. Although I don't think that this game against the Rams is any kind of a gimme on the road. You know, underdogs by 13.5. You know, I think that Danny Dimes will pop up for some bigger games. He did have 49 rushing yards last week. We like to see him going back to running the ball. I mean, they don't have a running game outside of Daniel Jones. So if he can start to string together some productive rushing efforts, that's going to raise his floor and raise his ceiling when he has games where he's, throws the football better and has time. I mean, he hasn't had very much time so far either. Darius Slayton, I think is a guy that, had that big week 1 game against Pittsburgh, and he should also have better days ahead. Evan Ingram's getting a lot of targets, but doing like nothing with them.
Yeah. Okay. The Eagles, I mean, injuries just don't stop for the Eagles. Seems like the last couple of years. Now they lose Dallas Goedert. Now they lose Deshaun Jackson in this game, joins Jalen Reagor on the sideline. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is going to go down as one of like the worst second round picks that we've seen at the wide receiver position. So they're down to like, I don't know, Greg Ward and John Hightower. And then, of course, the Bible narrative. I mean, I could see Zach Ertz getting like 15 targets in this game against San Francisco. What do you think about what's going on with Philly right now? They've had enough of Wentz here. They're calling for Jalen Hurts.
It was so tilting watching that game, Cincinnati against Philadelphia, because they had the over on 46. And so when it went to overtime, when Wentz ran in that touchdown, I was like, oh, baby, this is a lock. And I was like, oh, shit, they could tie. And then we go through the entire 10-minute OT period without a score. And at the end, the Eagles are like playing for a 59-yard field goal. And then they get a penalty to push themselves back 64 yards away. And then they punt. And then it was like the Eagles and the Bengals like had a handshake agreement, like, hey, we're gonna take the tie, we're gonna get out of here. Because the Eagles, or with the Bengals, when they got the ball, they didn't even try to throw the ball downfield. They just gave like a draw to Joe Mixon, and he gained like 8 yards. Boom, end of the game. Yeah, I mean, it was that was brutal. If you had the over on 46 there, it just wound up a push, so it didn't lose money, but that was brutal.
Yeah, not great, but yeah, I do think that the floor is significantly been raised for Zach Ertz going forward, and we'll see. Greg Ward is been consistently their most productive wideout for a long time, and also there's rumors that Alshon will be back. I do want to also say Miles Sanders, man. I mean, people are saying Miles Sanders was a bad play in DFS. Miles Sanders is not a bad play. I mean, gosh, his usage is so good, and it's like such a fluke he didn't get the 100-yard bonus. Miles Sanders has one of the best roles in football. San Francisco. I underestimated a little bit, I think, how much they were willing to use Jerick McKinnon, because if this game had stayed close, Jerick McKinnon was probably going to touch the ball 20 times. And I don't know, I didn't think that Jerick McKinnon had that in him, but Jeff Wilson came on, also played well, then the game gets out of hand. Also, they lose Jordan Reed, but it sounds like George Kittle could be back relatively soon. Brandon Ayuk continues to flash a little bit. What do you see out of San Francisco?
Yeah, well, I think that you were kind of right about Jerick McKinnon, because he suffered a rib injury after getting 17 touches. I mean, they probably did play him too much. He looked good when he was in there, and he has looked good all season so far. But then Jeffrey Wilson came in and, ran in place on the ground, but scored a couple of touchdowns. And I don't know. We'll have to see if McKinnon is going to play this week against the Eagles. We're going to have to see a lot about this. Like, I'm not even going to be able to write this game up, I feel like, until Thursday at best.
Yeah, because I think Raheem Mostert has a chance to be back.
Mhm.
Sounds like Tevin might not, but Raheem Mostert has a chance to be back, and that would shake things up. Obviously, he could be a true workhorse if McKinnon is out. Also, Seattle, a ugly play where Chris Carson gets hurt, and Chris Carson has a long history of injuries, was coming off hip surgery, but sounds like he avoided anything serious. Maybe 1 week, maybe 2 week injury on Chris Carson. People want to know how much should I be bidding on Carlos Hyde, and I'm usually hesitant on guys like Carlos Hyde who aren't pass game players, and the way Seattle's playing right now, it's like, man, I don't know, but Carlos Hyde is a guy coaches like to give the ball to, and so I could see Carlos Hyde getting goal line work, 14, 15 carries against the Dolphins, which is obviously very valuable. What do you think about Seattle's backfield and anything else with the Seahawks right now?
I mean, if you need running back help, like I think Carlos Hyde's a pretty aggressive guy to bid on. First of all, he hasn't been a ghost in the passing game so far. He's been targeted 3 times, caught all 3 for like 25 yards, and that's in very limited action. And then you've got the Dolphins, and then you've got the Vikings. So you have 2 very good matchups coming up, and the timetable on Chris Carson is 1 to 2 weeks. The Seahawks are undefeated, right? So, and I think they're probably going to beat the Dolphins. So they may feel like, hey, we can give Chris Carson another week when they're playing at home against Minnesota in week 5. And Carlos Hyde winds up getting 2 starts. And that's, he's going to be an RB2 in both of these games with RB1 upside.
Yeah, and you just see what happens when you get a Russ cooking plus a tightly condensed target pool. You see Lockett and Metcalf both go absolutely nuclear, and so there's just so much value, A, in Russ cooking, and B, the 2 guys are so far head and shoulders above any of the rest of his targets. It's just a total Yahtzee situation. Tampa Bay, hate to see Chris Godwin go down, but sounds like a pretty serious hamstring injury for Chris Godwin. We have a sample of this already. They'll get Scotty Miller in there. They'll get Justin Watson in as the number 3 wideout, and Ronald Jones, he's alive, man. I mean, Ronald Jones we thought he was dead, but he outsnapped Lenny 35-25. He outcarried Lenny 13-7. He out-targeted Lenny 4-2. They're not giving up on Ronald Jones, and I think it's probably going to be, as long as Ronald Jones doesn't completely screw this up, at least some kind of committee the rest of the year. I don't know exactly what, but some kind of committee. What'd you see out of Tampa's kind of easy win against a hapless Broncos team?
Yeah, I guess Ronald Jones is about as alive as Ronald Jones gets, right? Getting out of here with 73 scoreless yards and 7.5 fantasy points. You know who else is alive?
Gronk, I know.
Alive.
I feel like Gronk was trolling me.
You don't want me to mention it.
I know. He was trolling me because he gave this troll answer when they asked. He was like, "Yeah, I'm just a blocker now." He was trolling.
And then he goes out and leads the team in targets.
Right.
Scotty Miller got injured in the game too, and Justin Watson was out last week with a shoulder injury. So this is another team that we're going to have to be monitoring super closely. Heading up to game time in all likelihood with Godwin out. I mean, it could be a situation where obviously it's going to be a good situation for Mike Evans, but it could be a situation where they have to go to O.J. Howard and Gronkowski again. I mean, O.J. Howard also had a decent game, 3 for 49 on 4 targets, but they might have to look to those tight ends more than usual with all these wide receiver injuries piling up.
Yeah. I missed that Scotty Miller injury. I'm going to have to look into that for sure because that's going to change some things. And yeah, Mike Evans, he had 2 catches for 2 yards and 2 touchdowns. Weird line, but yeah, I'll take it. All right, last one we are going to do is the Washington football team. And I played Logan Thomas on DraftKings this past week. Dude has just the absolute stone nut usage, running a route on 96% of Dwayne Haskins dropbacks. He's slot or wide 71% of the time. He has a 24% target share, which is absurd. But the dude doesn't come up with it. 12 catches, 94 yards, 1 touchdown through 3 games. I think Rich Rebar sent me a tweet saying that he's seen his catchable target rate has been among the lowest in the leagues, which speaks to Dwayne Haskins. And also, maybe Logan Thomas just isn't that good as a receiver. We know he played quarterback at Virginia Tech. So I'm kind of, it's rare in these situations where guys get these outrageous usage and I feel like I can't play them, but I'm kind of starting to feel that way about Logan Thomas. And there's also some whispers that maybe Dwayne Haskins is on the hot seat, which, seems kind of crazy to me. You would give him more time to develop, I would think, but he's certainly not been good. So what do you think going on with Washington football team right now?
Yeah, Ron Rivera was adamant after the game last week that Dwayne Haskins was not going to be benched. But then on Monday, presumably after he watched the tape, he was like, well, there is a certain point at which, we got to make the move. And actually, Ryan Reynolds, who does our waiver wire column, I team up on the Scott Fish Bowl with him. And he was like, should we pick up Alex Smith? And, because it's super flex. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know. I think that we should actually maybe pick up Kyle Allen. I mean, the Redskins gave up a 5th round pick for Kyle Allen. He knows the offense. He knows Scott Turner's offense from Carolina. So I think that he probably would be the likelier next man up. So if you're trying to get ahead of the game, thinking that Haskins could get benched, which, hey, they're playing Baltimore this week, and they're probably going to lose like 40-10. And that's a game in which, a change could happen. So if you're trying to get ahead of the game, I think I would lean toward Kyle Allen over Alex Smith.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Allen's not better than Dwayne Haskins. Like, I know Dwayne Haskins is not good, but we have a large sample last year of Kyle Allen starting with some really, really good weapons, way better than what he'd have in Washington, and he was bad. He was bad for sure.
Definitely not saying that Kyle Allen is good, but he might be able to get the ball to Logan Thomas more consistently than has Dwayne Haskins.
Yep. Okay, that is going to do it for the NFC Team by Team pods. Appreciate all you guys listening. Appreciate you all being subscribers. We will see you on Friday night for the Kama Sutra show. So, for Evan, for producer Luke, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.